Alright guys, so we're done with the tillering process. You just mainly want to make sure that your limbs are both bending evenly. That's the main purpose of the tillering process. You also, if you're going for a certain draw weight at your specific draw length, you'll want to keep an eye out for that too. I wanted to get mine about 40 pounds at a 28 inch, or 45 pounds at a 28 inch draw length. I ended up with about 40, but considering this is my first bow, that's pretty close. So I'm not going to argue too awful much. But anyway, so here's our center line of our bow. We already had it laid out from the beginning when we laid it out on the top here. I made sure to transfer those lines on each side so it would be easier to lay out my handle later on. So from this mark, you'll remember we went up 1.25 inches for our arrow rest. Now that's optional. You don't have to put an arrow rest on there. A lot of people actually shoot off the top of their hands. I'm going to put an arrow rest in here because I feel like it'd be easier. But I don't know. So that's our mark for our arrow rest right there. And you'll see that I've got 2 lines on each side of our center line mark. I just went 1/2 inch on each side of this center line mark. And that's just a rough estimate. Like I said, this is my first bow. I'm not sure the best way to go about laying out the handle. But I put those lines there to help me keep it pretty symmetrical on each side. And basically I'm just going to use a couple different rasps. And I'll slowly start taking a little bit of wood off at a time until it starts feeling really nice and comfortable in my hand. So we'll go ahead and start on that now. Alright guys, so here's how our handle ended up. Like I said, I just used a rasp and I just kind of kept putting my hand on it to try and figure out what felt the best. And this is pretty much what I come up with. As you see, I only cut the arrow rest probably 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 at most. You don't want to cut too deep into the wood here, and you definitely don't want to go past center because that could be a breaking point if you do that. So yeah, this is how mine ended up. I did all mine by hand with rasp and with sandpaper, and I came back over it with a DA sander just to kind of smooth out all those rough spots with where the rasp hit it. I went over it with a card scraper a little bit, but with this shape it's kind of hard to do that too awful much and get it real smooth. But that DA sander definitely smoothed it out quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and put the string on it and put it back on our tillering jig just to make sure that it didn't mess with the tiller before we start to finish it. Alright guys, now we're going to go ahead and shape these. You can leave them squared off if you'd like. The guy I've been watching to learn how to build these bows from, he always does a point up at the top and then he rounds off the bottom. That way it's easy to identify which one's which. Now the way I've got the handle set up is going to be pretty easy anyway, so I may end up rounding both of these over just because it'd look a little better than just the square right here. So we'll go ahead and work on that. What we're going to do is just round this over here, and we're going to try and not mess with the notch part here at all.